Japan is home to some of the world's most avant-garde designers like Comme des Garçons, Yohji Yamamoto, Issey Miyake. Yet, when you walk the streets of Tokyo, the fashion you see is the complete opposite, so it's more modest and minimal. Is my audio being recorded? Okay, yes. In this video, I'm going to share what I discovered about Japanese style while in my trip to Japan this summer. From the way the women dress in their daily lives to the cultural values of humility that shape its choices. I'm also going to go a little bit into how this connects to traditional architecture and rituals. I'll also introduce one of my favorite Japanese brands that it's called Mizuiro. Finally, I'll talk about the cultural philosophies like Ma that I think truly hold the key to understanding Japanese elegance and elegance in general for that fact. Throughout this video, I'm going to make some comparisons to the Western style because that is my reality. So I was born in Argentina and I'm currently living in Spain. So the Western culture is kind of the preset in my mind. One of the biggest differences I noticed was how often women incorporated what we might call masculine clothing. And I say that with quotation marks intentionally. I would see plenty of women wearing oversized coats, straight trousers, shirting, tailoring, but not in a way that made them look masculine. Instead, their focus was on form, texture, proportion. For me, this was very eye-opening because all my life as a woman, I would choose clothes that accentuated my body or highlighted my shape. Whereas in Japan, the point isn't to show off the body, but to show off the shape of the garment itself. And I think this reflects a lot on their cultural values of subtlety and modesty. The Japanese society values restraint and harmony, and from what I experienced there, standing out too much was even uncomfortable for them. I think that dressing simply and neutrally allows people to blend while still expressing refinement through either quality or detail. And this idea of humility exists everywhere in Japan. For example, in traditional tea houses, the entrance door is deliberately small and it's called a nejiriguchi, a crawl-through entrance. I smile because I'm aware of the lack of Japanese I have. And in these crawl-through entrances, guests, even samurais, had to bow down or crouch to enter. This showed how inside everyone was considered equal, and this kind of humble act of respect shows how deeply the culture prioritizes equality and subtlety. Even the samurai, which was the highest rank, had to bow down. This same contrast that is crazy that you can see between the fully decorated European churches and the Japanese wooden temples or shrines. I think that European churches are kind of screaming for attention. They have a lot of details, while on the other hand, the temples are way more like quiet and gentle, and they just are. They're focused more on functionality. And of course, this same way of thinking leads eventually into fashion. And you can see that from the muted colors to the minimalism. The attention is not on decoration, but mostly on fabrics, cuts, layering, even like the affordable Japanese brands like Uniqlo prioritize materials and finishings. I think that a great example of the Japanese style is Mizuiro, which is the first brand I'll be introducing in this Japanese brand series. I'm doing this as a small series in Instagram because I'm still not very used to YouTube. But I'll leave the Instagram on the bio if you're interested in looking at that. And the reason why I chose this brand is because it represents a Japanese style, like to the T, perfectly. It's about simplicity combined with elegance. From what I observed during my time in Japan, people aren't dressing to call attention with their looks. Instead, the goal is to look composed, to appear effortless and refined and always very well put together. You will see almost no embellishment whatsoever and a lot of focus in structure and silhouettes. So it's mostly about the patterns of the garments and just making sure you iron things very, very well before using it. Its name comes from designer Minako Kawahara's favorite childhood color, Mizuiro, which means light blue in Japanese. And the brand is built on a promise, and that is to create a collection that all women can unconditionally enjoy. The absence of loud colors puts the emphasis on silhouettes, fabrics, and layering. This color palette is built combining monochrome neutrals such as black, white, charcoal, gray, soft earth tones like beige top and muted browns, and cool muted shades like the name navy, dusty blues, even sometimes olive tones. If you do go to Japan, you will see a lot of women wearing this style. They're just elevated basics. These garments are for people who value authenticity and approachability and want to look more elevated in their everyday. Now, what feels almost contradictory is that Japan is home to some of the world's most avant-garde designers, like Comme des Garçons, Yohji Yamamoto, Ise Miyake. They're creating very conceptual, radical pieces. While on the streets of Japan, style is often very pared back, more minimal and modest. So it's basically the polar opposites. Avant-garde fashion in Japan started after World War II, while Japan was embracing design as a way to redefine itself. This conceptual and often futuristic way of fashion is tied to philosophy. So it's not so much about trends, but about art. It's a critique, it's storytelling. And I think that this intellectual approach resonates a lot with Japan's broader appreciation for craftsmanship. In a weird way, they're both built on the same ideals. Both are about concept over decoration. The avant-garde pushes ideas to extremes with either deconstruction, asymmetry, volume silhouettes, while everyday style does the same, but in the opposite direction. So it distills those same values into everyday wear, something more simple, more minimalist. Also, they both respect a lot the craftsmanship and the intentions behind the garments, whether it's an experimental runway shirt or just a plain cut white shirt. At the root of these ideals, there are cultural philosophies. We often hear about wabi-sabi, which is beauty in imperfection and impermanence. But another concept I've recently learned about and I feel deeply in tune with is ma. And ma is about space, it's about balance and the pause in between. So think of silence in music. The notes matter, but the rests are what create this rhythm and emotion. In design or architecture, ma would be considered the negative space that makes this positive space breathe. What I take from Japanese style and fashion is its elegance. I've been thinking about what elegance is for me, especially after I had a little conversation with my sister about a brand we both found elegant. And while discussing this brand together, we quickly found that both of us had very different definitions of what this elegance was for us. For me, if I had to define elegance, it would be through this concept, through ma. Elegance allows for pauses, for air, for the pleasure of discovery. For me, elegance is respect, and so is simplicity. Respect for the object, for the viewer, for the space between those two. It doesn't waste your time with distractions or the craftsman's effort with unnecessary detail. It is the discipline to reduce, not because there is nothing to be said, but because just the right amount of talking and speaking has been done. I've read this saying in a book called The Creative Act. That is a book that I absolutely love, and I think that I would recommend it to a lot of creatives out there. And it explains this concept very beautifully, and it says, an artwork is only fully complete, not when there is nothing else it might be added, but when there is nothing else that can be taken out. It is a devotion to details so subtle they might be missed at first glance, but once seen, they cannot be unseen. To create something elegant is to believe that meaning grows in the space left open, a refusal to clutter. And that is precisely what I saw in Japanese style, not only their fashion, but truly anything they created, either architecture, pottery, and even in their daily lives.